Atlanta. You're listening to the new WCEG Network. We speak live in the community. You may watch us on your smart TV, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and other streaming networks. Uh, my name is Herman Anderson. I'm one of the co-hosts. My other co-host is Anthony C. Aikens. And after I finish our introduction, he will come on. Uh, WCEG Network is a nonprofit. Our business office is 404-490-8696. And additional to the ways that you can watch us is WCEGradio.com, Roku Streaming, WCEG TV Channel, and mobile podcast distributors. Good afternoon, Brother Aiken. Aiken, how are you?
Brother Herman, how are you? I am just absolutely fantastic. And fantastic is because God gave us the opportunity to wake up and see another day we hadn't seen before. So, being able to wake up, see you, be on the radio show is just a blessing that I don't take for granted. And happy Founders Day to my Omega brother, Herman.
Happy Founders Day.
Yeah. So to all of the Omegas online around the world, and we have many of them, I want to say happy Founders Day to you and to let you know we are glad and happy to be with you today. Herman.
Yes,
guest.
Sir.
We have an outstanding guest today. It is Mr. Derrick Jackson, Georgia State Representative representing District 68. Derrick, being an HBCU graduate from Norfolk State, after leaving college, just started a very distinguished career. Not only is he a 22-year retired naval officer, but he's done so many different things here in the state of Georgia in the State House. He's very active in the community. He has a strong connection with the military community. He has a beautiful wife that I had the opportunity to meet. We were all down in Nassau, Bahamas last summer at a function. But he's also engaged with a lot of different business ventures and acumens that help the people of Georgia through his influence. For instance, in identifying over $1 billion in global market occupational and managing international strategic partnerships. So, like I said, a very diverse young man, strong commitment. He's been honored by local organizations. And even though he's an alpha man, I can tell you something. The Omega saw something good in him because in 2013, Theta Lambda chapter of Omega Psi Phi honored him. So that's a great thing. So he shows that he's very diverse. People see his talents, not only the alphas, but the Omegas and the business and community. So we're just welcome. So have a great show with Derrick Jackson, Herman. There he is.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jackson.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
How are you doing today?
It is a blessed day. The good Lord woke us up this morning.
Yeah,
he renewed his contract with us. Good. And so when he renewed his contract with us, I will admit, Brother Aiken and Brother Anderson and Miss Vivian, that we got to do our part now. However we see that, through service, through, I call it proliferating love for the all of mankind. And so happy Founders Day to all the brothers of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. 3 of my best friends are wear the purple and gold, but I remind them that it all started with the black and the gold.
Oh, we understand that. We understand that, and it's a beautiful thing that you do have members of purple and gold in your lunchbox, because collectively we all work for the better good of our community and the kids, and we want to be role models. So I salute you as much as you salute us. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So tell us, I gave a little introduction, but let it come from your heart. Tell us a little bit about who Derrick Jackson is and what makes you tick every day.
I appreciate the question. And as I have shared with so many, that it all started with this young lady by the name of Marie Jackson. My mother was born and raised right here in Waynesboro, Georgia. A lot of folks don't know where Waynesboro, Georgia is, but it's right outside of Augusta. And my mother was one of 32 kids. My grandfather had 32 kids.
32.
Wow. By four different groups, but it was 32 in total. And it all started with her. She left Georgia in 1959, went up to New York, and that's where me and my siblings were born and raised. But it started with her. The reason why I always give my mother the credit, being a single mother, she taught me and my siblings all about service. And that was service starting with learning how to shovel snow up in New York, as well as rake leaves. And being the only boy with three sisters, there were certain chores that I was assigned, but my mother saw something in me at a tender age of 8, where she then started to outsource my talents, Brother Aiken, to other neighbors who were elderly, who could not shovel their snow during the winter or rake their leaves. And so she would tell me, go over to Mr. and Mrs. Smith house, whomever. And once I was finished, Brother Anderson, they would give me a cup of hot chocolate. Can you imagine giving a young man at the age of 8 some hot chocolate after shoveling your sidewalk and your driveway? It just warmed my heart in so many ways. And so that was the start of me understanding that it's not about the big things, but also the little things that we can do in serving our community, our neighborhoods, our city, our states, as well as our country. And that's why I ended up joining following my 5 big cousins into the United States Navy, because my family has a strong history in serving, especially the men, in serving this country, starting at World War I, World War II, Vietnam, and so on and so forth.
Isn't that amazing that, Herman and I talk about this all the time, and Miss Vivian, that people of color like you and I, we have served this nation with all kinds of dignity, honor, valor, sacrifice, and yet we still struggle to be recognized. We still struggle. That's why an individual like you in the position that you're in with the Georgia State Representative is to keep the veterans focused, making sure that people understand the value that we bring to this nation. It's not easy. It'll never be easy, but we continue to push forward and fight. So, you got that strong background from your mom, you'd have stated, and you carried that on throughout your military career. So, again, I salute you, and Herman salutes you for what you have done and will continue to do to serve more than 700,000 veterans in the state of Georgia. So, again, we appreciate everything you do for us.
It's interesting that you made that point that that we're seldom recognized for the service even our ancestors did, and you're right. But despite the country embracing us, we all realize that the contributions, Brother Aiken, that our ancestors did. Think about the Tuskegee Airmen, for example. Think about the Golden 13. Those who came before us, officer and enlisted, that wore a uniform in the Army, primarily. And I'm starting with the Army for a reason, because in the Army, they said, we'll just give all these black men a gun and put them on the front line in infantry, right? Despite the other skill set that they were able to bring. But they put them on the front line, which is the reason why a lot of casualties took place with African American men back in World War I and World War II. But that still didn't stop us. We got this internal flame that we have that God blessed us with, that even when we're not embraced and loved for fighting for the things that we believe in, as well as those things as it relates to the Constitution of these United States, there's something on the inside that tells us that we're going to press forward, move upward and onward, despite those who do not embrace us.
Exactly right. I mean,
And,
I'm sure Herman is. I'm sorry, Herman.
yeah, that's question I want to put to you as we move through this journey, and we have earned rights and benefits from being part of the military, abiding by the Constitution, and what Anthony and myself and I have a veteran organization is my motto is to help veterans understand their entitlement and get their benefits. And as being involved in the type of work you are in community and service, we've been doing this show for quite a few years now, Anthony and myself, and we would like to I'd like to have your ideas on how to get more veterans involved in service, and how to get more veterans involved in organization to help veterans that have been in war and have disabilities.
That's a great question, Brother Anderson. I would say it this way: three things. First off, we're not where we used to be, but we still have some distance to travel in the United States as it relates to taking care of the men and women who have either served in the past or in the present. We really, as the United States, at the federal and state level, we need to make sure that those resources are available to take care of the men and women and their families. We cannot forget about their families, because their families also sacrifice too. So when we are tens and thousands of miles away from home, our families are left to deal with those things of paying the rent and mortgage, making sure children are going to school, make sure that they have fresh water to drink, air to breathe, food on the table, a roof over their head. And so we cannot separate the two. We tend to always just acknowledge the veterans, but there's a family that's attached to that veteran. Those mothers and fathers, those husbands and wives, those daughters and sons, those aunts and uncles, right? And the further we get away from the true essence of service, the less we see those who want to volunteer to serve. It's very interesting. There was a time, even in the United States Capitol, that 70% of those who served in the federal level also served in the military. But now we have presidents who never served in the military. We now have congresswomen and congressmen who never served in the military. We now have United States senators who never served in the military. Why is that important? The reason why that's important, Brother Herman, is because we no longer who have folks who are elected understand the plight of the military men and women who are putting on that uniform. 40 years ago, when we had 70% of those congresswomen and congressmen who served in the military, we were getting a lot more resources. We were getting acknowledged. And so we got to turn this around. I always refer to it as an aircraft carrier, because the aircraft carrier is big. It would change course, but it takes a minute for it to change course. It's not like a little platoon boat that can turn on a dime. Aircraft carriers are huge. And so what we need to start doing, to the essence of your question, Brother Herman, is this. We need to start recruiting men and women who served in the military to run for office. We need to get those who understand what the true meaning of service and sacrifice. And when we start doing that, then we'll get to number 2, and that is more resources for veterans, right? And I'm not just talking about to take care of PTSD or mental health or mental illness. I'm talking something much more deeper than that. Because when you have elected folks such as myself who served in the military, we would then start to invest more dollars to make sure that they get the proper medicine that they need to take care of their bodies, both physically and mentally. We'll make sure that where these bases are located, that the surrounding areas where our military installations are clean and safe for our military families. We've been closing too many military installations as of late, and then what happens? That entire community collapses. Well, what happens if those military families decide to make a transition from the military to corporate America or civilian life, and those communities are no longer taken care of? So we got to make sure, number 2, that the resources are available to meet the needs of our veterans and their families. But then number 3, and I think is the most important of the 3, we have to meet veterans where they are. We have to be intentional of making sure that our legislation and our laws embrace and demonstrate the protection of our veterans. So that way, when they do decide to transition from the military to civilian life, they can have access to a free college education or a free trade or skill. That's how we demonstrate and embrace our veterans, to show that we love and support their sacrifice and service to our country. Not just on Veterans Day, not just on Memorial Day, not just on 4th of July. Because those military men and women, they give 365, 24/7, not just 3 days out of the year. And so if we do those 3 things, Brother Herman, I think it will address the essence of your question.
That was very well stated. I'm telling you, it was very succinct, and I can understand your passion, and we can see it and feel it. Because if we hit one thing that resonated with me, which is so true, when you take a look at our leaders, I would say 90% of them have never served in the military. They don't know what it is to have boots on the ground, be on a bivouac, or go out on on a run, to eat an MRE, or to go through cold weather training in Grafenwehr, or to be in Bosnia or Grenada, any of those places where bullets and stuff were flying. They don't have a clue. But yet those individuals are sitting in those governmental positions and in offices, making decisions on the active duty veterans and their families that are impacting their lives without any recourse. You, Derrick Jackson, you, Herman Anderson, me, Anthony Aiken, represents your last letter in your name and 4 numbers of your Social Security number. That's what you are. They don't know you as a person. They see many of us come through every day, and to them, we're faceless. We're an alphabet and 4 numbers. So that's why it's so important to have a Derrick Jackson, to be in the Georgia House, to be an advocate, not only for the veteran, but also for their families. You got any comment on that, Herman?
Well, I do. And in the part that to advocate for the community, the family, the state. I think that's one way we can turn the ship is get more veterans, number one, and get more community uh, residents involved in basically who we put in office from at
Right,
all levels,
right.
and do our homework be before we vote. Understand what that person platform is when they campaigning, and make sure that uh, make an effort to let the people that are running to be in charge of this country what our priorities are.
You know what is most disappointing, and I'd like Derrick to comment on this. It upsets me to no end every time we get into the voting season. Here we are in South Fulton, which they said has over 100,000 residents. But when you go to the polls, recently we just had an election on the 7th of November, and you go to the polls and individuals are running for very important seats, and you have less than 3,000 people voting for an individual you hope that will be an advocate for your particular areas. What's your thought on that, Derrick?
You know, that's an excellent question. And when you think about the heart of your question, Brother Aiken, is this. Because we tend to think that voter suppression is the worst thing that's doing damage to our democracy, voter suppression. But I'll ask the audience, I'll ask your WCEG audience, which one is worse, voter suppression or low voter turnout? See, because if you think about the heart of your question, Brother Aiken, is this. Voter suppression, it is a tactic. I'm not trying to hit us, all right? It is a tactic out there. But what's even more damaging is low voter turnout. Over 700,000 Georgians, Black and brown Georgians, 2 years ago, registered 700,000 voters, did not vote. Did not vote. Didn't vote. And so if a third of that 700,000 would have voted, you would have a Black governor right now.
Totally agree. Totally agree.
Right? You will have a Black lieutenant governor. I ran for lieutenant governor last year. But when you have, so we do a phenomenal job with fraternities and sororities registering folks to vote. But that's only part of the cycle. The other cycle is getting them to the polls. And there's no voter suppression at play when 700,000 folks do not feel the need to fulfill their civic duty and go to the polls. I say this, and I'll make it very clear and succinct, these 2 points. If we don't vote, then who will? Because it's going to get to a time that our grandchildren, I have a 4-year-old grandson, and he's going to look back at 2023. He is not going to ask, what did Dr. King or Coretta Scott King or Thurgood Marshall or Rosa Parks, what did they do? Because they're gone. John Lewis, they're gone. Our grandchildren are going to ask, what did we do in 2023? And so we got to be able to look them into the eyes and say, I voted. I did all that I can do. That when God woke us up, I did as much as I can, as long as I can, while I can. Period. But the second point is this, Brother Aiken. If we don't get out and vote, because we can complain about police brutality, we can complain about the banning of books, we can talk about gun violence, we can talk about homeless veterans, we can talk about all these various topics, but it's the voting is the keystone of our democracy. That will determine who gets put in office that's going to tackle the interests that we ask them to tackle. Georgia is sitting on $10 billion surplus. For the WCEG audience, surplus means we done paid all of our bills and we put $10 billion into the bank account just to sit there in reserves. Meanwhile, we have homeless veterans out there. Meanwhile, we have hospitals that are closing. Meanwhile, we have children who are going to schools in black and brown zip codes who do not even have books because they're banning those books. And so you're right. City of South Fulton has a population of 118,000 citizens, 90% African American. So why do we have 3% of 118,000 show up? So what is the other 97% telling us? Telling us they don't care. They don't care about infrastructure. They don't care about clean air to breathe or water to drink. They don't care to make sure to have jobs available. They don't care about hospitals and schools. Is that the 97%? Is that what they're telling us? That they don't care? Because the 3% that shows up, they get their folks in the office and then they write legislation that negatively impacts us, ordinances that negatively impacts us. And so it's not so much about voter suppression. It's real easy to say somebody's trying to take something from you. But when you realize that you now have the power, we're not like our ancestors 300, 400 years ago, where they had to guess the number of jelly beans in a jar or the number of bubbles on a soap. We don't have to do that. We just simply register. And if you can't get to the precinct, we made it easy, Brother Aiken. We give you not 1 day to vote, we give you 3 weeks to vote.
Yes.
We also allow for you to submit an absentee ballot to speak on your behalf. And so it ain't about voter suppression. Yes, I know it exists. I'm more concerned about the low voter turnout. Why 700,000 black and brown citizens in the state of Georgia? Georgia is the cradle of the civil rights movement. It is the cradle. It's ground zero for us in the military. We know ground zero means ground zero. That is where it starts. So if we don't get it right here in Atlanta, then we can't expect somewhere else like in Florida, Idaho, Louisiana, Texas to get it right, where we have the power. And we just don't realize that we have it.
I totally agree. And you know, it's really upsetting that, to me, and I'm sure you and Herman, that in some instances you never even see the face of that elected official until it's time to vote. Once they're in office, they're gone. And we don't hold them accountable. The accountability aspect is literally out the door. Once they're in office, that is it as far as it's concerned. So the apathy, and I agree with you, it's not voter suppression. It's the apathetic attitude of the individuals of why do I need to vote? Well, look at your streets, look at your roads, look at your schools. The state of Florida was a wake-up call. When the governor says to you, hey, we're going to pass legislation that we're going to discontinue discussion on race, gender, identity. Come on. Ethnicity. We want to wipe you out. I saw that firsthand in Bosnia with ethnic cleansing when they blew up these libraries to eliminate the history of an entire race of people. They don't want you around. And if we don't pay attention, the 700,000 apathetic, well, let's see, less 3%, we're going to go down that same path in the state of Florida.
So
it's very simple.
No, based on state of Georgia having a surplus budget and the governor won't let anybody touch it for certain reasons. And as you pointed out, we have kids in school that can't eat lunch. We have parents and everybody. We're in a situation today where if you have a food organization, has a church organization, has a food pantry, all of that has increased rather than decreased since the pandemic. And we have the state sitting on money. What is the message what message do you have to the people?
So here's my response to that, Brother Anderson, and this is very clear. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
There you go.
I would love to be more profound, Brother Anderson, but the squeaky wheel gets the grease. Yeah. That $10 billion, ladies and gentlemen, those are your tax dollars. And so in order for your tax dollars to go to work for you, you have to engage in your elected official. But unfortunately, Brother Anderson, a lot of our citizens don't know their mayors, don't know their city council, they don't know their state representatives, they don't know their state senators. They might know the president of the United States if we put it on TikTok, if we put it on Instagram and Facebook. But we all grew up in a time that we had to memorize when we were taught. We had to memorize the name of the president, the name of the vice president, the secretary of defense. I mean, I remember in 4th and 5th grade and taking social studies, I had to memorize, okay? But we don't teach, civics 101 is not taught anymore.
We don't have civics anymore.
Right? So when they took away home ec, telling you how to become domestic and, how to maintain a checkbook, when they took away typing on a typewriter, when they took away mechanic school and welding school, when they started taking all of these things away in those curriculums, they also took away civics. We all grew up with Schoolhouse Rock. On a Saturday, you could not escape talking about, I'm just a Bill, a lonely Bill, sitting on the steps of Capitol Hill. Well, and then it taught us about the legislative process. It told us that there are 435 members in the House of Representatives. They taught us that there were 100 United States senators. They taught us the term limits of a president and the vice president. They taught us the role and responsibility of a mayor and a governor. We don't do that today. You won't find Schoolhouse Rock on a Saturday morning. You don't find us talking about how to get in contact and do the things that Brother Aiken said. You can't hold somebody accountable if you don't know who they are. It's impossible. So if you don't know the name of your mayor, the name of your school board members, the name of your county commissioners, it's unfortunate. And so we have to realize where we are in 2023. Now, let me make the second point clear, right? Let me pivot that we have a lot more work to do as a Divine Nine as for HBCUs, and here it is. You ready? Preachers, pastors in the church. There was a time that we would meet in the basement of a church and strategize who will run for office.
Tell me about it.
There was a time in the church where we talked about how we're going to be strategic on our boycotts. We were planning who's going to get arrested and what lawyers were going to go down and use that bail money to get us out. There was a time where we took moments and turned them into movements. And so if we get these three groups, the Divine Nine, the HBCU, and the church organization in all the cities and states across these United States, and take it upon ourselves and saying, this is what we're going to do. Because unless we want to help ourselves, no one's going to be there to help us. So the squeaky wheel, Brother Herman, gets the grease. So I'm telling you that there's $10 billion in surplus. You better believe that there are other organizations that may not look like us in different zip codes. They're going to be making their requests to make sure that their roads are paved and make sure those mandated services in their communities, make sure that they're getting libraries, making sure that, the schools don't have leaky roofs and school buses. They're going to make sure that they got modern technology in every classroom. You better believe that there will be other organizations making their requests, saying, hey, I just learned that you got a $10 billion surplus. Georgia is one of the wealthiest states in the union. Let us not kid ourselves. The squeaky wheel gets the grease.
I'm just sitting here and I'm at a slow boil, of course, just to let you know, because I'm a believer in accountability. It really upsets me every time, just locally where I live, to go down Route 166, Langford Parkway. I came to Atlanta as a 24-year-old student after completing my master's degree to Fort McPherson, whereby I was the first Black officer in this command of people that didn't look like me. And at that time, this particular area was not like our people. So let's fast forward now to the current time where it's so depressed that we have a mall that was one time very vibrant, just hanging on. We have a roadway system that has thousands upon thousands of cars a day going from 285 over to 75, ill repair. But let's go up 10 miles to Carr Parkway. The production there is unbelievable. The Atlanta Braves moved from our community to a Carr Parkway community, and billions of dollars followed. Where is that representative for that community not standing on the table saying, what in the heck's going on here? This mall, at one time, Macy's, was the largest gross store in the state. It's gone. That box is empty. And you saw it going one after the other of just being gone away. So we need more Derrick Jacksons. We need more people that have the strength and the intestinal fortitude to get up front and say, this is wrong. This is not right. We have all of this money in the surplus. Let's fix this community where I live and work and play every day.
Brother Aiken, here's the thing. There's enough peach to go around for everyone. Isn't that something?
I agree.
Right? Yeah. There's enough peach in the Georgia state to go around. So that means all 159 counties, all 537 cities in the state of Georgia should get the same level of resources. But we are in this game that on this side of the railroad tracks, we're going to take everything and deprive the folks on the other side of the railroad tracks. Y'all get that at dinner time. We're going to withhold all the resources from them. We were taught that high tide lifts all boats. So I don't care if you decide that you want to be in a yacht and I'm in a canoe. Why would you want to poke holes in my canoe so it will drown? That makes no sense. I'm okay with your yacht. You did what you needed to do to get in a yacht. But if I'm in a canoe, why are you trying to torpedo my canoe? Instead, you should say, let's create an environment, a society, a community to where you too can take that canoe and turn it into a yacht. So I want to make sure that we're going to create a quality of life environment for everyone to thrive. There was no need to take the Braves Stadium from where it was, Hank Aaron Boulevard, and move it up to Cobb. But we realize gentrification is at play. We realize that you want to sub-optimize communities. And then you left the former community to die on the vine. Why do that? Where there's enough resource to go around for everyone to thrive. But it's one's condition of their heart, Brother Aiken. That strikes the chord, right? You will have some folks saying, what do we need to do for Ukraine and Israel? I get it.
Oh yeah.
But I'm going to ask the question, what are we doing for Congo? What are we doing in Africa? What are we doing in Sudan? They need help too. They
Totally
need
agree.
help too.
Totally agree. And that's why I said, it's just appalling that local politicians, people like us that we vote into office, those 3,000 that voted them in, don't stand up and say, look, this is wrong. This is not right. I'm fighting for the people, my constituents in the community that I live and look like me. There is no reason why we should have any dilapidated communities in the state of Georgia. None. Because we got enough peaches to go around, as you say.
Well, I want to make one statement. It's there's enough to go around, and it gets up to morality and doing the right thing. We have to be, the country is about 50-50 divided. You have to be where you're not gonna let people that are selfish or whatever their reason is take stuff from you. This is my territory, and I'm gonna make it the best and keep it. It's because there's competition in there's corruption in everything we do.
There is, but it doesn't mean that it should stay that way, Brother Anderson.
I agree.
I mean, the last time I checked, it's hard for you to contain air. So don't put a plant in my neighborhood that is going to radiate pollutants and think that those pollutants is going to stay in my community. Once those pollutants leave that stack of that plant, it's going to float to wherever and wherever. And so I would say that, my fight is, what is environmental justice?
Yeah.
What is civil justice? What is voting justice? Why is it that you have to profile me because of the pigmentation of my skin while I'm driving an automobile? Why target the schoolhouses where my children should be able to learn how to read and write and their ABCs and how to count to 100, just like the next child. Why starve the resources from one side of town to promote another side of town when there's enough resources? We have enough resources to go across all of Georgia. And so I understand your point about the morality. I understand your point about ethics. My point is we should not just accept that. We should
I totally agree.
demand the effort and say no longer. We're not back in 1612. We're no longer in 1868. We're no longer in 1975.
Well, that's what I'm saying. We should be talking about it, and you are talking about it, and it's also part of the education process of getting people to get involved.
Herman, you hit the nail on the head. You got to be involved. You got to understand what's going on. In less than 60 days, the Georgia House will reconvene in Atlanta, and for the 40 days, they have the opportunity and will make changes. And those changes will become effective on the 1st of July. It will become law. So remember, I still remember my civics. You know what I mean? I'm involved with that. So the community, we need to get on down. I wrote an op-ed at 2 o'clock this morning. The op-ed was, what really got me going was the state of Florida. That really appalled me. It's going all around the country, but I'll single in on the state of Florida. But as you said, we got to get back into our churches, to talk to our kids down to the 3rd and 4th grade level, not just middle school, but down even lower, to let them understand the importance of understanding civics and understand the importance that they can make change, because voting is so important. You have that right to vote. Many people have lost their lives, been maimed, been killed, whatever, for them not to vote. And yet you have the opportunity and you stay home and not get out, like you said, 3 weeks prior to the date to vote. And you become so apathetic that you won't even get out of your home to vote, or even take your children or other children of age that could vote to vote. We got to do much better. And we need to continue to bring the Derrick Jacksons online to talk about how we can make change.
And that's why I appreciate your program and the platform and how you're using your platform. Just think, 30 years ago, WCEG wasn't around. You had to go on one of the major networks, ABC, CBS, NBC, CNN, Fox, right? The major networks. And it would cost you millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now we have the technology. We can do it from the comfort of our home. Our every phone is a video recorder. It's a laptop. Every device nowadays, right? And we can, and so if there's nothing else, Brother Aiken and Brother Anderson, is this: the COVID epidemic taught us how fragile life is. It also taught us how folks can politicize anything and everything. Who should wear the mask? Who shouldn't wear the mask? Who should get the shot? Who lives? Who dies? Right? Everything was politicized. So so we have the ability now. God has blessed us with the ability to where we can use platforms such as WCEG to get the word out, to educate, build awareness, but more importantly, to make sure that our voice, which is our power, the Bible reminds us that we have a voice, but if it's silent, right? Even Dr. King reminded us. He said, I'm not so much worried about the voice of my enemies. I'm more concerned about the silence of my friend.
Isn't that something? That is powerful, man. The silence of a friend who does nothing. Knowing that it's
And he's an
wrong.
alpha too, by the way. He's an alpha. I just want to know.
I totally understand. Black and gold. I totally understand. But a powerful man with a powerful message that still resonates today, many years after his death. Many years.
And one point that he made is technology, and it's available, and I think we should use it more than we do. There's a saying that the information highway bypassed some of us, so that falls in the line of still. I mean, it's available to everybody, so it's to encourage people to use technology. You can even vote an absentee ballot without even leaving your house. You can order it, mail it in, drop it off. It's there.
Well, Representative Jackson, Brother Jackson, I want to make sure that you and the other representatives from the state of Georgia, when you meet in January for the next those 40 days, is that we keep the veterans and the veteran affairs at the forefront, not only for the veteran, but for, like you said earlier, their families. Because those illnesses, and there are many of them that affect that veteran, also affects the family. And we need the resources, the dollars, the people to help those in need. Suicide rates are increasing even more now. And we need to make sure that systems are in place, resources are in place, people are in place to help. Please do that for us when you meet in January.
And I certainly will. And just last week, where we celebrated all of our veterans during Veterans Day, you can see it in the NFL games, the NBA games. You can see it on the commercials, how they say we salute our veterans, and I get it, and I appreciate that. But the resources that should follow. It's one thing to tell a veteran, we thank you, we salute you, we give you a handshake, we take a photo with you. But if those resources are not backing up those actions, what are we really communicating to our veterans? And so I sit on the Defense and Veterans Committee here at the Capitol, and I'm one of the ranking members for the Democrats as it relates for the veterans. And I use that opportunity to do exactly what you stated, Brother Aiken, is to advocate for our veterans, to advocate for them, because they're not in that position. They're not in that committee. They're not under that gold dome. And that's the reason why we need more elected officials who have served, to where it won't be such a challenge to be able to say, let our dollars, our resources follow our salute.
Totally agree. Totally agree. Well, we're about to close out here very shortly, but is there anything that you would really like to share? Any other additional information you'd like to share with our audience?
Yes, I got one couple of comments. Number one is we got a request to ask you to advocate for a commissary in Atlanta. They closed the one at Fort Mac, so the local veterans have to drive to Columbus and Warner Robins, North Georgia. So that's a constituency request. And the other thing is deal with, when you deal with veterans in the local community, there are veterans that can't pay their rent, they can't buy food, and all the hoopla that the NFL, the NBA give these guys for one day don't solve the daily life problems, and we need more of that. So
yes. No, I absolutely agree. And I would tell you, to go back to your first point about commissaries, during the BRAC Commission, where they were closing, different military installations and bases and things of that nature. Now, when that was happening, the individuals who were in leadership role then, who were making those backroom deals, they're no longer in office. And so the promises were never fulfilled. They never fulfilled those promises. That's one. Number two, as it relates to your point about again, resources for veterans, I think what we need to do is, one, elect more veterans into office at all levels of office, from federal, state, local. We need to recruit more veterans to run for office. We have to do that. And then when we know that there are veterans who are running for office, we need to support them, $5, $10, whatever it is, so that way we can do our part to help them get across that finish line.
I totally agree. Totally agree with you. I'll tell you what, this has just been an absolutely outstanding show. We appreciate you taking your time to come and to share your thoughts about some very controversial subjects. But the bottom line is, from Herman and my standpoint, let's do everything we can to support the veterans and their families. And more importantly, let's continue to advocate for people to vote and put the right people in office to be a sounding board, not only for the veterans and their families, but for things that are wrong and to get them right. That's the bottom line.
We got a couple minutes left. Your final closing comments?
So my final comments are this. Get out and vote. Elect those who have our interests, but most importantly, hold folks accountable. Hold them accountable. And I can be followed on Facebook, Derrick Jackson. I'm all things Derrick Jackson, DERRICK Jackson. My email is votederrickjackson@gmail.com. And I appreciate the opportunity to be on your network, WCEG Network, with you all. Let this not be the last time. I would love to come on during the session and give you all an update.
That'd be great.
Give you some insights on what's happening during the legislative session.
Count on it. We'll make that happen. Thank
you.
Thank you. Well, Herman, it's been a great show.
It has been a great show, and thank our guests. Very informative, very helpful, and also network building. You want to close us out, Anthony?
Yeah, I just want to say to everyone out there, thank you very much for continuing to listen to WCEG Network. It's a network that brings truth to the community. We want to say a big shout out to our founder, Penny Rogers, for her vision of growing this from a mustard seed to now a network that really has many, many outstanding individuals involved. We want to thank Ms. Crair, who's been there for us to make sure we do the right things and at the right time. So thank you very much, Representative Jackson. Appreciate you very much. And I salute you again for your work. And we support you all the way around. Thank you very much. Herman, always good seeing you.
Have a good weekend.
Have a good one.